My daughter called me at 8:14 p.m. Not late enough to be an emergency, but late enough to feel like trouble. The old landline on my kitchen wall rattled when it rang. The screws are loose again, but I keep forgetting to tighten them. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered. Dad, we need to talk. No hello. No warmth. Just business. I shifted the phone to my other ear. My left ear isn't what it used to be. Too many years with power tools and too little sense to wear hearing protection. What is it, Melissa? She took a breath. A long one, the kind she uses before asking for money. I need you to promise not to embarrass me at the wedding. The spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered into the sink. Embarrass her, right? I looked around my kitchen while she talked. The beige tiles, the dented kettle, the fridge covered in old magnets from places I never visited but my wife always wanted to. My house is a museum of a life that ended 5 years ago, and apparently it's also a liability to my daughter's image. What do you mean, embarrass you? I asked. You know how you get, she said. Her voice tightened, the way it does when she's pretending to be patient. Emotional. You start talking about mom, or money, or the past. Daniel's parents are very polished people. They're used to a certain way of doing things. A certain way. Translation, a way that doesn't include me. I'll behave, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. Good. She exhaled, relieved. And please don't bring up the expenses. Any of them. It'll just look awkward. I opened the drawer beside me. Inside was the stack of receipts I'd saved. Neat piles held by rubber bands. The venue deposit. The dress. The catering installments. The endless, invisible support. All those yellow highlighted numbers under my tired handwriting. Awkward, she said. Sure, I murmured. Behind her, I heard Daniel's voice, softer, hesitant. Is your dad okay? Melissa covered the receiver, but not well enough. He'll be fine, she said. I told him not to make things weird. Weird. After everything I've done, apparently I'm the weird one now. When the call ended, I stood alone in the middle of my kitchen, holding the phone like it was something fragile, something that might break if I breathed on it wrong. The refrigerator hummed. A clock ticked. Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. Inside, nothing moved. I pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. My knees always complain in the evenings, another gift of age. On the table, a ring of dried coffee from the morning stared back at me. Don't embarrass me, she'd said. I stared at the empty seat across from me, the one my wife used to fill. She would have known what to say. She always knew. But the house was silent. And for the first time in a long while, the silence felt like judgment. I picked up the receipts, stacked them, squared the corners like I was preparing evidence. Something in me tightened. Something old. Something I had held together for too many years. That was the night I realized my daughter didn't see me as her father anymore. Just a potential problem. And problems, in her world, needed to be managed. I didn't plan on keeping records. Most fathers don't. But life taught me to save receipts the way some people save photographs. Proof. Dates. Numbers that don't lie, even when people do. After Melissa's call, I took the brown shoebox down from the shelf in my closet. The one with the split corner and my wife's handwriting faded on the lid. Taxes 2001 to 2004. A lie in itself. There hadn't been tax documents in that box for almost a decade. Just a lifetime of my daughter's emergencies. I sat at the dining table and opened the lid. The familiar smell of old paper drifted up. Dust, ink, and disappointment. The first day at college. Purdue University. Tuition payment. $9,600. August 14th, 2008. That was 2 months after my wife died. I remember standing at the bank with a death certificate still warm from the printer, signing the wire transfer with a shaking hand. Melissa stood beside me, too stunned to cry, wearing the red sweatshirt her mother bought her on their last shopping trip. I paid every semester, every credit hour, every surprise fee. By the time she graduated, the total was $84,600. She told people she worked her way through school. I never corrected her. Next stack, housing. $2,300, security deposit. $1,850, lease break fee. $5,000, emergency transfer. $8,600. I swear I'll pay you back, Dad. That last one still makes me smile. A small, tired smile, but a smile nonetheless. She cried on the phone that night, said her roommate lost her job and couldn't cover rent. Later, I found out they'd fought over a boyfriend. Then came the car accident. $12,300. Subaru Outback repairs plus rental. Same month as my rotator cuff surgery. She never asked how my shoulder was healing. Then, the credit cards. Though I'm in between jobs. My paycheck is delayed. It's only temporary. $26,900 temporary dollars. I stacked the receipts neatly, lining up the edges. Funny how a person can be so organized with paper, yet have no order in their life. Then came the wedding. The biggest pile. I went through them slowly, like reading an autopsy report. $7,200, bridal gown boutique. Dad, it's on sale. Practically a steal. $14,000, venue deposit. Dad, they're almost booked for the year, please hurry. $15,500, catering installments. Dad, everyone expects seafood at a proper wedding. $5,800, florist. Dad, I don't want cheap flowers. Please don't make me look cheap. The flowers, for the record, died within 4 hours. A metaphor, if ever there was one. Then there were the smaller receipts. The ones no one ever thinks about. Bridesmaids' robes, string lights, chair overlays, hair and makeup trials, wine cases, customized invitations, tens of little leaks in a boat I kept patching with my bare hands. Altogether, the wedding cost me more than $50,000. And the part that stung wasn't the amount. It was that she spoke about it like she was doing me a favor by letting me pay. I rubbed my thumb across the edge of a florist invoice. The paper was slightly soft from how many times I'd handled it. This wasn't generosity anymore. It had become a habit, a reflex, like breathing or bleeding. I glanced around my dining room. The dim light, the outdated wallpaper with a pattern my wife adored. The chair across from me, her chair, forever empty. When Melissa was little, she used to sit on her mother's lap at this very table, dipping apple slices into peanut butter and telling us about her day. We thought she would grow into a kind woman. She grew into something else. I stacked the receipts back into the shoebox, but one of them slipped out, the venue contract. I picked it up. On the bottom, in bold print, it read, remaining balance due, $6,800, to be paid by father bride. Father of the bride. Funny title. These days it felt like financial department. I closed the box, sat back, listened to the old house creak as if it were reminding me, you're alone now. No one is going to protect you, not even the one you raised. I looked at the shoebox. I looked at the phone. I looked at the empty seat across from me. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar rising in my chest. Not anger, not quite. Something colder, sharper. The beginning of a line I should have drawn a long time ago. 3 days before the wedding, Daniel showed up at my doorstep with a hesitant knock. The kind people use when they're afraid to disturb something fragile. In my case, that something was my evening routine. A reheated casserole, a lukewarm cup of tea, and the evening news humming low on the TV. I opened the door and found him standing there in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. He held a clipboard under his arm and looked like a man balancing 12 tasks in his head. Evening, Henry, he said, giving me that polite smile he always had. The kind that looked borrowed from customer service training. Daniel, I nodded. You look like you're about to sell me insurance. He chuckled, but sounded tired. I just came for the wine boxes. Melissa said you had 6. Inside, I said, stepping back. Come in. He followed me through the hallway. I noticed him glancing around, at the framed photos of Melissa growing up and my wife's gardening hat still hanging on the hook, at the stack of newspapers I hadn't taken to recycling yet. People always look around when they enter an old man's house. They're taking inventory, measuring what's left. The boxes were stacked neatly by the dining table. He bent to lift one, then paused, looked at me. You okay? He asked. I waved a hand. I'm fine. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me with those patient brown eyes of his, the kind of eyes that make you feel like you're being seen, really seen, even if you wish you weren't. You don't seem fine, he said softly. That was the first moment I realized something. No one had asked me that question in years without an angle attached. I cleared my throat. Long week. He didn't buy it. He set the box down and straightened. What's wrong? I should have brushed it off. Told him I was tired. Told him nothing was wrong. Told him father of the bride's stress was normal. Instead, something in me cracked. Maybe it was the quiet way he asked. Maybe it was because he wasn't my daughter. Maybe it was because I was sick of carrying everything alone. I walked to the closet, opened the top shelf, and took out the shoebox. He frowned. What's that? My part of the wedding, I said. We sat at the table, and I removed the lid. Receipts, contracts, invoices, the financial skeleton of the last 15 years. He picked up the first paper, the florist invoice. His eyebrows rose. Your name is on this, he said. It's on most of them. He sifted through the stack, each sheet tightening his jaw a little more. Venue deposit, catering installments, dress payment, wine receipts, security fee, decor rentals, hotel block reservation. He looked like a man flipping pages of a book that started as a romance and turned into a courtroom drama. How much did you pay? He whispered. More than I should have, I said. Less than she'll admit. He kept skimming. She told me her boss covered some costs, and that you barely helped. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Barely helped. The phrase hit harder than I expected. Daniel set the papers down and rubbed his face. Why would she lie? He said, more to the table than to me. You're asking the wrong person, I replied. I stopped understanding my daughter the day her mother died. He didn't argue, didn't defend her, didn't smile politely. He just sat there, shoulders sagging, a man realizing the foundation of his life might not be concrete, but sugar. When he finally looked up, his voice was different. Henry, I'm sorry. For what? For not knowing. For believing her. For being part of this, even if I didn't see it. I wave him off. You're a good man, Daniel. A decent one. It's not your job to audit her behavior. Maybe it should have been, he said quietly. We packed the receipts back into the box. He closed the lid gently, almost reverently, like it contained something dangerous. And maybe it did. He carried the wine boxes to the door, then turned back. Can I ask you something? He said. Go ahead. When she said she didn't want you to embarrass her. He hesitated. What did she mean by that? I stared at him, at the hopeful, worried man he still was. Not yet broken in, not yet hardened by years of disappointment. She's ashamed of me, I said plainly. Ashamed of where I live. Ashamed of how I talk. Ashamed that I'm not like her in-laws. Polished and wealthy and perfect. His face fell. She shouldn't be. Well, I shrugged. We don't always get to pick the children we raise. He didn't smile. Instead, he said something that surprised me, truly surprised me. I want you at the wedding, Henry. Really there. Not in the corner. Not hiding. Not shrinking. You're her father. I nodded, but inside I felt something pull tight, a rope around a beam, ready to snap. Thank you, I said. He left with the wine, and the house grew quiet again. But the air had shifted. There was a new weight to it, a new tension, because Daniel knew the truth now. And the truth doesn't stay quiet for long. The morning of the wedding felt colder than it should have. Middle of June, yet the kind of cold that gets into old bones and stays there. I woke up at 5:40 a.m., 30 minutes before my alarm. Habit, age, nerves. Pick any reason you like. I made coffee in my scratched old percolator, the one with the loose handle my wife kept meaning to fix before she passed. The brew tasted burnt, metallic, but I drank it anyway. At my age, coffee is less about flavor and more about ritual. I dressed slowly. Black suit from 1998. White shirt with a collar, slightly frayed at the tips. Tie that never sat quite straight. The shoes I polished the night before until I could see the kitchen light reflecting in them. I stood in front of the hallway mirror. An old man stare back. Not pathetic, no. Just unnecessary. By 9:10 a.m. I was on the road. My sedan rattling on the highway like it was rehearsing for its own funeral. The GPS kept trying to reroute me. I ignored it. I knew the venue address by heart. I'd written it on checks more times than I wanted to remember. Riverview Estate. Even the name smelled expensive. The place sat on a slope overlooking a slow-moving river. The kind people pretend is romantic for photos, but smells faintly of algae up close. The parking lot was already full of rented cars, black SUVs, polished sedans, shiny chrome that reflected judgment from every angle. I parked near the back, where the asphalt cracked in spiderweb patterns. Appropriate spot for me. The moment I stepped out, I could hear the chaos. Generators humming, florists yelling, someone rehearsing on a violin, the sharp clatter of catering trays. It all sounded like money. Money I'd paid. I walked toward the entrance, adjusting my jacket as if that might make me blend in better. No luck. At the white archway, a young woman with a clipboard intercepted me with the speed and precision of airport security. "Vendors checking on the left," she said. I smiled politely. "I'm family." She glanced me over, suit a little old, hair too gray, tie stubbornly crooked. "Ah." Her expression tightened. "Sorry. My mistake. You can, sign in over there." She pointed to a table marked General Guests, not Family of Bride. I walked to the general table. What else could I do? A young man handed me a sticker name tag. Not a printed card, not a ribbon, not one of those elegant place cards with gold trim. A sticker, like I was at a corporate seminar. I stuck it onto my jacket to avoid making a scene. Inside, the venue looked like it had been dipped in sugar. White drapes, white flowers, white candles. Over-decorated and under-sincere. The kind of beauty that costs money but has no soul. I stayed near a standing heater, watching guests arrive in shimmering fabrics and rehearsed smiles. They didn't look at me twice. Why would they? I didn't match the furniture. At 11:30, I saw her, Melissa, walking quickly toward the dressing suite. A cluster of bridesmaids followed behind her like ducklings. "Melissa," I called gently. She turned, scanned me, and forced a quick smile that never reached her eyes. "Dad, you're early." "Didn't want to be late." "Well," she said, straightening her veil, "just try to relax and stay near the back so the photographers don't get confused." "Stay near the back." "On my daughter's wedding." "Of course," I said. She nodded, already losing interest, and rushed off, leaving behind a trail of perfume and tension. I stayed where I was, hands clenched inside my pockets. Around noon, I wandered toward the garden area. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, truly, but voices carry differently in outdoor spaces. And I recognized Daniel's voice instantly. Quiet, steady, angry in the softest way possible. "You lied to me, Melissa," he said. "I told you it's not a big deal," she snapped. "It is when your father paid for everything and you let me believe he didn't." His voice cracked slightly. "Why would you do that?" "Because it doesn't matter," she hissed. "You don't understand. People expect certain things from us. If they knew my dad was..." She stopped. I stepped back, out of sight behind a pillar. My heart was thudding harder than it had in years. Daniel's voice dropped. Was what? Silence. Then a low exhale. "Just lower class," she whispered. Each syllable hit like a hammer. Lower class. That's what I was to her. Not father. Not provider. Not man who poured half his life into hers. Just lower class. I leaned against the pillar, staring at the river in the distance. The light shimmered over the water, cold and bright. People laughed nearby, carefree, clinking glasses, taking photos. I stood there alone, my daughter's words ringing in my ears harder than any insult I'd ever heard. "Melissa," Daniel said softly, "you can't talk about him like that." "Don't start," she said. "Not today. Especially not today," he answered. I heard him walk away. Her footsteps stayed frozen in place. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally dragged myself back toward the ceremony area, guests were gathering, the music was starting, and the air smelled of roses and something artificial. I took my seat in the last row. Not assigned, just safest. As everyone rose to watch the bride walk down the aisle, I stayed seated for a second longer, letting the moment pass through me like cold wind. My daughter looked radiant. Beautiful. Perfect. She never looked my way. And for the first time in my life, I realized something painful, simple, and absolutely true. She didn't want a father that day. She wanted an accessory. Something quiet. Something invisible. And God help me, that's exactly what I had become. The ceremony ended in a blur of violins, camera shutters, and the kind of applause people give because everyone else is doing it. I barely remember walking out with the rest of the guests. One minute I was in my seat. The next, standing near a white tent with chandeliers hanging from beams that definitely weren't meant to bear that much weight. The reception hall smelled like rosemary chicken, melted wax, and too much money. I kept to the edges, as requested, far from the photographers, far from the family tables, far from the people Melissa thought mattered. I stood near the wall, next to a tall speaker that buzzed on low frequencies. Not the best seat in the house, but it was the only place I wouldn't be in anyone's way. Around me, Daniel's relatives floated like they were born in press suits. Handshakes, small talk, subtle bragging about careers in finance and consulting. My daughter fit right in, too well. She had the smile of someone performing a role she'd rehearsed for years. Every time her eyes passed over my corner, they slid past me like I was furniture. At 4:17 p.m., the DJ announced it was time for speeches. I stayed standing. No one had asked me to speak. Melissa never even hinted at it. And honestly, I didn't trust myself with a microphone. Not after hearing what she'd called me earlier. The first toast was from the maid of honor, 30 seconds of cliches. The second was from Daniel's father, 3 minutes of humble bragging about Daniel's career. People laughed, clinked glasses, patted each other's backs. Finally, Melissa stood up. She shimmered under the tent lights. Flawless makeup, flawless hair, that flawless smile she practiced in her bathroom mirror when she thought no one was watching. I want to thank Daniel's family, she began, voice smooth as syrup, for their incredible support throughout this process. Truly, we couldn't have done any of this without them. Applause. Loud. Proud. No mention of me. Not a single word. She continued. Your generosity made our dream wedding possible. Someone clinked a glass. Another cheer went up. I felt my throat tighten, not because I wanted praise, but because the lie was so blatant it stung like a slap. And then, as if summoned by some internal earthquake, Daniel stood up. No cue, no smile, no plan, judging by the look on his mother's face. He took the microphone from Melissa gently, too gently. Honey, what are you doing? She whispered, smile frozen in place. But he didn't answer her. He turned to the crowd. I'd like to say something, he said, voice steady but charged, like wire pulled too tight. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. People leaned in. Even the chandeliers seemed to stop trembling. I recently learned, he began, that someone very important has been left out today. Melissa stiffened beside him, her face drained of color. Daniel continued. A person without whom this wedding would not exist, though he's been standing quietly in the back, keeping to himself. He glanced at me. My stomach dropped. Melissa's father, he said clearly. Henry Turner. Whispers rippled across the hall like cold wind through leaves. I felt every head turn toward me. Every eye. Every judgment. Daniel went on. I found out this week that Henry paid for nearly everything. The venue, the catering, the dress, the deposits, all of it. He lifted the stack of copies I'd given him. Receipts. Neat. Highlighted. My handwriting on every line. He did it without ever asking for credit. Without ever asking for thanks. Melissa's hand shot out to grab the microphone, but Daniel stepped back. Henry sacrificed for years, and instead of gratitude, he was told to stay quiet, to stay hidden, to not embarrass anyone. The word hung in the air like smoke. People looked at Melissa, then at me, then at Daniel, whose jaw was set, finally tired of pretending. Marriage is supposed to be honest, he said, his voice breaking slightly. But I can't start this new life pretending lies are truths. Melissa lunged again. Stop it. You're humiliating me. Daniel didn't even flinch. No, he said quietly. The humiliation isn't his. A silence followed, the heavy, choking kind that makes air feel too thick to breathe. The DJ didn't move. The waitstaff froze. Guests exchanged looks so sharp they could cut glass. Melissa trembled, mascara already smudging. You ruined everything, she hissed. Daniel looked at her with something like heartbreak and resolve. No, he said. Everything was already ruined. I just turned on the lights. He placed the microphone on the table very gently and walked away. Not storming, not shouting, just leaving the stage like a man who finally saw the truth and could no longer pretend he didn't. Melissa stood there alone, shaking, surrounded by flowers she didn't pay for. I stayed in the back. right where she told me to be. And for the first time that day, I was grateful she'd put me there, because from that corner, I saw everything clearly. I didn't stay long after Daniel walked off. There was no reason to. People avoided looking at me, not out of disgust, but out of discomfort. Truth makes people itchy, especially when it wasn't meant for them. I slipped out through the side of the tent, past the buffet tables, past the overpriced ice sculpture that melted into an expensive puddle on the linens. No one stopped me. No one called after me. Perfect. Just how Melissa wanted it. The evening air hit my face, cool, sharp, honest. I walked to my car slowly. My knees protested, but I didn't mind. The walk helped clear the ringing in my ears. By the time I pulled out of the parking lot, the sun was beginning to sink behind the hill, staining the sky gold and orange. For the first time in a long time, the sunset didn't make me sad. It made me free. I waited for the explosion, for the apology, for the screaming. Instead, I got an email. 3 days later, sent at 6:12 a.m. Subject line, your responsibility. I opened it, standing there in my dim kitchen with the coffee maker wheezing behind me. Since the wedding was ruined due to your interference, I expect reimbursement for the funds you contributed. My lawyer will contact you regarding repayment and damages. Melissa. No greeting. No father. Just a threat. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then laughed. A quiet, tired laugh that belonged more to disbelief than humor. I clicked reply. Attached. Every single receipt, scanned and labeled. The tuition, the rents, the cars, the emergencies, the credit cards, the wedding. Every penny, every year, every sacrifice. No message body. She didn't deserve words. I hit send. 30 minutes later, she called. I didn't answer. Around noon, the phone rang again, but this time it was Daniel. His voice was steady, calmer than I'd expected. Henry, he said, I'm sorry. For all of it. Not your fault, son. He was quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing, like he was bracing himself. I left her, he finally said. I couldn't start a marriage on lies. Or with someone who treats people like that. Especially you. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same spot where I sorted receipts, drank cheap coffee, and listened to the world forget about me. You did the right thing, I said. I should have seen it sooner, he whispered. I just didn't want to admit it. That's how love works sometimes, I said. It blinds you, and then it teaches you. He let out a breath, shaky, but relieved. There's one more thing, he said. I wanted to thank you for telling me the truth. You asked, I replied. I didn't plan to say anything. I'm glad you did, he said, because if you hadn't, I'd still be wearing that ring. He chuckled softly. Well, not anymore. I closed my eyes for a second. The house felt warmer. Not full, but less empty. If you ever need anything, Henry, he added, you can call me. Thank you, Daniel. We hung up. I sat there for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum and the faint whir of cars outside. The ordinary soundtrack of an old man's life. Except now, there was something new beneath it. Something steady. Something like dignity. Melissa never apologized. She never showed up at my door. She never tried to explain. Fine. Let her build her life on the version of herself she prefers. But she won't build it on me anymore. I closed the shoebox for good. Tied the lid down with twine. Put it back on the closet shelf. That chapter was finished. Not with shouting. Not with revenge. But with truth. The one thing money can't buy and children can't fake. And as I turned off the kitchen light that evening, I said something out loud for the first time in years. She didn't want me to embarrass her. I paused, the house settling around me. But in the end, she did it all by herself. And I finally stepped out of the shadow she put me in. For good.